My name is David Scaife and I'm the owner of Winstons of York, a men's clothing shop in York. I worked for pretty large retailers before. I worked for North Face and Timberland, managed those stores and did buying for them for about 4.5, 5 years. And then I realised after working there for a couple of years, I'd learned quite a lot of skills about buying, about being in the business, about running a shop, managing, forecasting, all those kind of things. And I thought I could use those skills. And so I decided to start looking at a premises and opening my own shop. We've been trading in May of this year, it'll be 5 years. I knew COVID was going to affect the business. The fact that, say, most of Europe, particularly northern Italy into France and Spain, they'd already started seeing shops closing, businesses closing, people really being restricted to their premises, basically where they were living. I think it was only time would tell that it was going to happen over here and we were probably going to close. Obviously, being a clothing shop, we're not exactly essential. Being a relatively small retailer as well as we are, being shut for a prolonged period of time would obviously have an adverse effect on us at that time. We weren't very big online, we weren't doing a lot of online business, so if our shop closed and York, where we're based, being heavily reliant on people visiting the city, tourism, overseas tourism, obviously if that dried up, then it was going to have a big effect on the shop being able to run. January, February had actually been quite strong. Going into March, when COVID really started becoming, a thing in the media, and it was spoken about a lot, and businesses were starting to struggle, and we weren't getting the visitors, not just overseas visitors, but visitors from other parts of the country. Business at the start of the very end of February, beginning of March, really did dry up very quickly. When we got announced that we were going to go into lockdown, I generally didn't know how long it was going to be for, and I was quite fearful that it was going to be for basically the rest of the year. I don't know if that's exaggerating or not, but because we didn't really have a definitive date, fundamentally at the time we didn't know about grants or if we were going to get any support. It was very much the shop is closed, we have to make some money somehow, we have all this stock, we have to sell it somehow. As a small business owner, you need to have a lot more foresight. You need to be a lot more stable. You need to know when you're going to be opening, because you can plan for it. If you don't know these things, you just can't plan. So we had some money saved away, but we didn't know if that money was going to have to last us a month, 2 months or 6 months. We didn't know about how much stock we needed to buy, because obviously if the shop was going to open, we would probably sell a bit more. Whereas if the shop stayed closed and it was closed for longer, then we wouldn't need to buy as much stock. But then our stock was being produced, a lot of our printing is done just in Leeds, but obviously they were in lockdown, so we couldn't get the stock made as quickly. So things were taking a lot longer, so planning and knowing when we were going to open was a real challenge for us. There was times I didn't think Winstons would survive. When we went into lockdown in the March, April time, we had about a year left on the lease, and it was very much, do we just ride out that year? Do we just cut our losses and leave? The fact that I did think we weren't going to open, there wasn't anything to say in April, May, June time that we were going to be opening up, and then what would we open up to? That was the other question. It's all well and good opening up, but if no one's going to come and shop and support you because they can't, then it'd be a really sad situation to be in. I would say mental health at the very start, when we very first went into lockdown in that March. I had a week or 10 days really where I was really flat, and I generally didn't know what to do with the shop. It was really quite tough actually, and I remember just sitting at home one day with the kids. I've got a 6 and a 3-year-old, and they obviously weren't at school, and we were just sort of sat there trying to do some schoolwork and homeschooling like every parent's tried. And I was just thinking, I don't know how we're going to survive with the shop, and then if the shop doesn't survive, what do I do? It's not exactly like there's loads of retailers or hiring staff at the minute. So what would I do then as a career? And I remember particularly having a really low point with my son, who had been off school for a couple of weeks at the time, and he was quite upset. And I just said, what's wrong? Are you okay? And he actually said that he was really sad. And I was like, as a parent, that was like quite hard to hear, because he wasn't seeing his friends and he wasn't at school. And I was a bit like, there's much bigger issues out there. People are losing their lives, people are losing loved ones. Mine's just a shop. You just sell clothing. It's not that big a deal. At the end of the day, if we just keep plugging away and we keep pushing our social media and we keep designing and we keep getting stock out there and we keep working our website, then maybe we can survive, but there was definitely a week or 10 days where it was a pretty flat moment, to be honest with you. The support that we received, financially support anyway, we received a grant back in March, April time, which was for that first lockdown period, which basically just went straight to the council who own the building that the shop is in Wren. So we didn't really see any of it, if I'm being honest. The biggest support we got it was really just from other businesses. Indie York, which is a great community in York, which is full of independent businesses. The community support from other businesses showing what we were doing, liking what we were doing, having people to speak to was fantastic. We didn't get a lot of support, I would say, directly from the council. In terms of our rent, we did have a short rent holiday where we still have to pay the rent back over time. We did have one conversation where they phoned us and asked us when we'd start paying our rent back, and it was quite a short conversation of we'll pay it back when we start making some money, which was effectively all we could do. And they basically got the grant that we received and we just paid it straight to them pretty much. What we were working on while we were in lockdown on the business was pretty much full on into the website and to social media. I would honestly say it's probably the most hours I've ever actually worked on the shop was in that April, May time when we were closed, because you were constantly on social media, we were constantly on the website, we were constantly designing new products. And then obviously we were getting orders in. And so then we were having to obviously ship out orders, so package them up, make sure they're okay, go to the post office. So it was a lot of work actually. It was quite exciting because it was things I hadn't done before, and it kind of kept it fresh. And because it was fresh and new, and we were generating sales from people we'd never normally reach, it was really quite exciting. But looking back at it now, it was a lot of work.